Jazz made the playoffs for 20 years in a row. Remember that? Up until the 2002-2003 season. Since then, they've missed the playoffs 5 of the last 10 seasons. Thursday's Locker cleanout gave us an insight on a team that could look a whole lot different next season.
Yeah, it's going to be a long summer.
And likely a summer of big change. The free agent negotiating's already begun.
I want to be here.
You want to be a part of this?
Oh, absolutely. They know that. I'm Utah Jazz until they don't want me no more.
You know, I would love to be here.
Big Al was asked the odds of him returning.
I didn't hear you.
Odds.
Yeah, I heard you, but I'm very
Yeah, it's a weird feeling.
Dennis and Kevin and their group with their agents will work those things out, and the market will dictate it, but they've been great.
It's definitely a strange vibe here in the Jazz locker room, especially when you consider that 2/3 of these guys are at the end of their contracts. They may not be back next year, and the Jazz have lots of big decisions to make. They have $30 to $40 million worth of payroll to think about spending, but the biggest questions may be right here with Paul Millsap and Big Al. The biggest thing about Al might be his $15 million price tag. And what about Mo at $8 million plus? Paul Millsap's grown up with the Jazz. 7 years, if you can believe that.
It's not a sad time. You know, it's a good time. All the hard work that you put into your craft, and hopefully it pays off. Lots of cash, no longer tied up. The Jazz are free to spend it.
It's a great situation to be in if you're the Utah Jazz, if you're a fan, because you know they got a chance to make some big moves. You know, some big moves.
That could be fun. You know, just knowing who's coming, who's leaving. You know, are we getting better?
It's sad that some of the guys may not be back, but I mean, it's exciting that they can put pieces in place. They have moves to make.
Yeah, they should be excited about it. You know, like you said, they got a lot of money. You know, make moves or whatever. You know, they should be excited about it.
Of the Jazz going forward, we're not looking at the reasons why they didn't make the playoffs this season, finishing 2 games back, and it hurts, but that has come and gone. Radio voice of the Jazz, David Locke, is here, so is beat writer Jody Genessy of the Deseret News. Guys, thanks for coming in.
My pleasure. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, Locke.
Did you miss me? We haven't seen each other in 2 days.
I was going through 24 hours. That's right. Bittersweet day. It's kind of, Gordon described it as just eerie. It was strange in there that day.
Oh, the locker room clear out. I actually thought it was interesting in this that how many guys you ran those bites, how many guys want to stay. I mean, it was a year ago that we had a bunch of guys who didn't have very good years that scorched earth on the way out. To the argument of whether Ty managed the locker room correctly, I thought that was pretty clear when every single one of these guys came out on a year and felt they had been treated fairly, that they wanted to come back, and that they had positive things to say. That was very different than 12 months before.
Right.
It was just so weird that it was April 18th, and Dennis Lindsay kept saying April 18th, and here we are, April 18th. That's usually when the season's just getting fun, and they were cleaning it out.
You know, 2 of the last 3 years, 5 out of 10, it doesn't seem possible. All right, time for us to address so many of the intriguing Jazz questions, issues percolating this summer. We'll start with Jody. What's the one single biggest issue you think the Jazz have to address?
I think it boils down to point guard. And this is a point guard franchise, John Stockton, Darren Williams, and it's trending in the wrong direction right now. 4 years ago, the Jazz led the NBA in assists. The next year, 4th. Last year, they're 11th in assists, and this year they ended 13th in assists. And this is a playmaker-oriented offense, and it just has gone the wrong direction. And this year is a little bit interesting because Mo Williams had that thumb injury, and he struggled with that. But even when he was back, it wasn't always clicking like it should have been with the point guard. And I guess a sign of that was that often Jamal Tinsley ran the offense better than Mo did. And to Mo's credit, he came back from the thumb injury and showed that he could score and lead the offense. But going forward, they need to find someone that can really be the playmaker, that can have that offense running efficiently and executing at a high level. And it's going to be tough for them to find someone like that. There's not a lot of intriguing point guards on the free agents market, and they might have to get creative. But I think that's the biggest issue.
David, your thought on the point?
I think it's something they have to address, and they got to figure out whether Mo Williams brought what they wanted to. Defensively, they need to get better. I think they need to get bigger at the point guard as well. I think in this day and age in the league, you watch Russell Westbrook tonight run Jeremy Lin off probably 60, 70 picks. Jeremy Lin's actually pretty big, but you got to be a bigger point guard. I know everyone's in love with Trey Burke in the draft, but he's a little guy, and I think you got to be pretty big in this league now to be a point guard.
We've asked all of our Twitter followers to jump in, so let's go to Jody's. This is at Poker Joe Mo. Most pressing Jazz need, forget the point guard. We just discussed that. Sign Big Al, who hopefully learns to get get to the line more often. And to that effect, let's listen to what John Barry of ESPN said during Wednesday night's last Jazz game. He loves Big Al.
So what about Al Jefferson? Could this be maybe his last game as a member of the Utah Jazz? He is an unrestricted free agent.
I have a hard time letting him walk, Mark. He's second highest scoring center in the league, still 27, 28 years old.
Al, push it up.
Yeah, there's John Barry obviously loves him, so what's the sense?
Well, I think those are all the reasons you do like him, and he doesn't address any of the reasons why you might let him go, which is you have two young kids that are probably more ready than not to step in.
$15 million, too, which I don't know if he'll get that, but that's another big number.
I think, I haven't finalized my research on this, but I'm pretty close. I believe the Jazz had the largest discrepancy of any team in the NBA defensively with Al Jefferson on the floor compared to off the floor by one player. So there's more to the picture than John Barry presents right there.
And your thoughts?
But at the same time, I mean, Al is a gifted offensive center, and there are very few in the NBA. And so, I don't know. Maybe you could see them I see them bringing back Al more than I do them bringing back Paul. And mixing with Al with Derek and Ennis, that threesome could work. And who knows? I mean, that's a big question this season. Al loves being here. He fit in. He was a good captain. He was a good leader. So.
I thought he had 3 great years here. It's just a question of, the market will determine. If it's $15 million a year, I just don't see him coming back. All right, David, your one key.
Gotta get better defensively.
Yeah.
I mean, they've just been 21st in the league defensively last year, 21st again, I think, defensively this year. They have to be better defensively. Now, the good news is they got better. I mean, right. I think it was trending in the right direction as we see the graphic here. I mean, they were miserable in December. But you'll never win in this league if you rank in the bottom 10 defensively. So that was a nice trend in February and March that we see there. But they've got a long way to still go defensively. That's the number one thing they have to rectify.
And it was interesting that Gordon said the same thing to me at the cleanout. He said, look what the Grizzlies did to us. They were everywhere. They were all over us. That's how we need to grow to be.
And I think that might stem to where John Barry.
Yeah. Your sense on the defensive end?
Well, you look at Big Al, he gives you a lot of offense and very little defense. Right. But with the Jazz, when they're not giving you much defense and their offense was only ranked 13th in the NBA this season, so you need more offense if your defense is going to be poor. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that was the pick and roll defense was really, really poor, especially early on in the middle of the season. Trended a little bit better as the season went along, but when Derek Favors wasn't on the floor, it was pretty porous defense.
If you're going to build a franchise, you need to be 13th defensively and 21st offensively. Improve your offense. It's harder to do it the other way around. Right.
Doesn't work. All right. One of your many Twitter followers, Brian Kimball, management needs to address leadership and pecking order so the coaches can focus on other things than contract concerns. Interesting. Ty spoke to that at cleanout.
I think this was a really interesting tweet. That's why I chose it, because I think it talks about engagement, and talks about engagement both from the fans' standpoint to the players. I think the fans want players they can attach to, but I also look at the Warriors, who have the Warriors have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, David Lee playing, all knowing they're going to be on this roster for a few years. The Rockets have Jeremy Lin, Chandler Parsons, Omer Asik, and James Harden, all knowing they're building something together. There was never a feeling this year in the Utah Jazz that any of the guys were building anything together. And I think really the slump in the middle of the year looked to me like a team that was disengaged with the uniform they were wearing. And that's what's got to change. And I think if the team gets engaged with the uniform, the fans will follow by being engaged with the team.
Okay, and your thoughts on the management angle here. Ty Corbin will come back. He'll have just 1 year on his contract. But and it's Dennis Lindsey starting to get his feet wet with the second year and a chance to build a team this summer.
Yeah, I think the Jazz were in a really awkward position for Ty. He had to juggle the veterans who could produce some wins and try to develop those youngsters. And I don't think they always meshed, and it was incohesive at times. So I think going forward, they need to figure out who their lead guys are and stick with them and build the plan around them. And I think fans will follow. Even if they have to take a step back to let these guys develop a little bit more, I think the fans will follow as long as they can see the clear path and know that there's a good direction.
And Locke clear-out was interesting because it was really the first time that I think it was Ty openly admitted that he made substitutions based on 82 games rather than individual games. And when you talk to the players in that, and maybe some more than others, I thought it was clear that it was necessary for him to do that as well.
My thought is it's an exciting time for Jazz fans. There's $30 to $40 million of payroll to fill. There's roster spots. They have draft picks to work with. Now, I'm not saying this is all going to be this year. And then there's also Big Wick, who says the discussion spending, if the discussion spends time talking about Jefferson and Millsap, I'm not listening. Well, sorry. We haven't talked about Millie, but we will right now briefly. Here's a guy that we all talked about off air, and it looks like he might not be back.
I'll tell you what.
Look, you have to respect Paul for what he's done for the franchise for the last 7 years. This wasn't one of the stellar 7 years, though, and I think he struggled more than anybody trying to find that.
Right.
Tried to find his footing with all these substitutions.
The guy most impacted by like the roster, just the way it was set up.
I don't know who he is anymore.
Right.
Go back to 08-09. He fills in for Boozer. He has 19 double-doubles in a row. Remember? He didn't have 19 double-doubles this entire year.
But he'll say perhaps that's rotation and expectation and plays being run for him and that stuff, right?
Well, then he's starting, but there were a couple fourth quarters where Ty left Derek Favors in to finish the games, and he just seemed discombobulated all season.
And that's a good way to end. It'll be an interesting offseason as the discombobulation grows into another team. Maybe it'll take a couple of years to get it done. We thank you guys for coming in.